Welcome, everybody, to Come Back to Love. This is the radio show on Dream Vision's 7 Radio Network. I'm Robyn Vogel, and I'm so glad you're tuning in. I'm your host. I'm a love and intimacy coach, a certified IFS therapist, and the creator of Heal Your Heart. This show is a sacred space where we explore the real, raw, and beautiful journey of coming home to love, starting within ourselves and extending to the relationships we long to heal, deepen, or ignite. Each week, I'll share powerful tools, heart-opening stories, and transformational insights to help you release the old patterns that keep love just out of reach and rewrite the story you truly want to live. Whether you're healing from heartbreak, feeling stuck in familiar dynamics, or simply craving deeper connection, you're in the right place. I also invite you to join me for my free 2-hour class, Break Your Patterns in Love, a live, empowering experience designed to help you uncover what's really been holding you back in love and guide you toward the relationships you deeply desire. You can sign up anytime at freelove.today. Very easy to remember, freelove.today. You can catch Come Back to Love Radio every Thursday at 1 a.m. and 1 p.m. Eastern on Dream Vision 7 Radio Network. Listen from your phone, in your car, online, or simply ask Alexa to play Dream Vision 7 Radio. Sit back and relax. Enjoy the show today. I'm really excited to introduce you to my special guest, Karen Brody. Karen, welcome so much. Welcome so much. That's a new expression I'm using. Welcome so much for being here today.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
You're welcome. Today is a day where it's literally just about 100 degrees here outside of Boston, and I think my brain is like a little bit fried from the heat. It's truly hot. So anyway, I am really glad to have you. I was saying to you just before we hopped on the radio that we don't really know each other. We don't know each other, actually. I've been following you for about a year. And I don't know initially how I came upon your name or your program, Daring to Rest. But as soon as I saw the words Daring to Rest, I just was completely drawn in. And as somebody who is an entrepreneur and been working at my business for 20 years, raising 2 children, being a woman and a mother, and et cetera in the world, I felt like it was such a potent invitation to rest and to slow down. And your energy and what you're putting out into the world just really drew me in. And so I've been following along, looking at where to receive, and then I invited you to come on the show. So I'm really glad you're here. I'm really looking forward to this.
I'm glad you invited me. Yeah, I'm happy to be here.
Yay. Um, so why don't we just start at the beginning? Like, what is Daring to Rest? Did you create it? Tell us whatever you want to tell us about
Well, I
this
think
invitation.
the daring is like, two things. There's individual and collective, really. Individually, well, maybe I should start collectively because it impacts us individually, right? You know, there's a collective push for productivity in the world. And not
Yes.
just productivity, but like everything is rewarded that's speed related.
Yes.
That's, the faster, oh, she's so fast or she's so, or he or whatever, it's just, there's a constant grind that we're indoctrinated with really from birth. And, get the baby out quick. It's really, it starts early and it's embedded into so many parts of our culture that we just accept it and we accept that we should be chronically exhausted all the time and that actually burnout is sometimes for some people a badge of honor. That it actually, oh yeah, I spent all-nighters, and whatever it is. Um, where things are changing a little more in the collective space. When I started Daring to Rest, it was not the case. I mean, people would still just laugh if you said you were going to rest. Now there have been some rest books written. We had COVID. People started to kind of just stop and take a pause. And I'm not saying everything went back to a good place after COVID, but it did give people pause. And I think that's why people refuse to go to work where they have to commute 3 hours a day. They said, I want to only be in a hybrid at the most situation where I'm working, sometimes commuting, but I'm also online because it gives me more time with my family, whatever it is. People started to appreciate things that they never realized they were missing. And collectively, it is daring to rest in a culture that really is invested in us being exhausted. It's invested in women in particular, being exhausted because when you're exhausted, you are obedient to the system and to all the systems. Because, you honestly think it's reasonable
Right.
to not have, more than 2 weeks vacation a year. You think it's reasonable. It's not reasonable. And so when, the individual starts to dare to rest, it becomes it becomes not only like a rally cry, a roar that we've been feeling for a while, because we know things just don't make sense. Like there's a lot of insanity out there that I'm expected to work 24/7 and raise my family, feed the kids, all these things. It doesn't make any sense. And so the invitation is so daring. Plus, the type of rest that we initially offer people, the practice of yoga nidra, is a daring kind of rest because it's a rest that really allows you to power down to the space of doing nothing. It is the art of doing nothing because rest can be so many different things. People can feel they're resting when they're reading a book, and that is certainly relaxing. But a practice like yoga nidra really takes you to zero thoughts in your mind so that you're a clean slate and you really can reboot your whole mind, body, spirit. It's daring.
It is daring. It is daring. I love that language. And as I said to you before we started, it's courageous to invite people to rest for all
We
the
get,
reasons you just said.
yeah, we get shamed a lot.
Yeah.
A lot of us have a lot of messages we were fed both from family and culture, and family was fed it from, our family's been programmed from culture and from previous ancestors, where sometimes it's actually not safe to rest. And so we have that, and we have culture, and so, people tell me all the time, a lot of women will say they heard you can rest when you're dead. That's a very common one women
Oh,
tell me.
yes. People
If
say
they were
that.
told you can rest when you're dead, rest is weakness, rest is not
Yes.
productive. All that if you rest, you're lazy. And
Yeah.
so there's a lot of barriers. We start to feel these obstacles, not only because realistically, we have a lot on our to-do list. So it is challenging to create space for anything, that for thriving. You have to consciously create the space, or else, the thriving doesn't happen.
Yes. Wow. So many things, so many questions. I want to talk about how to create the space, but not yet. But that's really important and personally important and culturally important, collectively important in so many ways. I just want to, what's landing for me, I mean, so much of it, all of it, but this piece around the ancestors and how what I got from what you said was that actually resting was dangerous. Like, stay on guard, always be awake, make sure you know who's where, what's happening, where the closest exit is something that, people who have experienced a lot of trauma are often, needing to be aware of inside their being. But I'm just thinking about how that got passed down in our, over many, many years.
Absolutely. I mean, everyone's lineage is different, but certainly racism, sexism, there are people have ancestors who, had to stay on alert.
Yeah. Right.
And so, rest could be seen as, and so for example, like an ancestor, for our ancestor who never rested, it was a good bargain not to rest. It saved their lives,
Yeah.
right? And so, but what happens is that ancestral exhaustion contract gets handed down to us. And actually, depending on one's life circumstances, if you are in a safe enough space, because not everyone is, but if you're in a safe enough space, you have this opportunity to actually say, well, wait a minute, that's a bad bargain for me to never rest. My ancestors had to keep the lights on. My ancestors had to, be alert. But actually, for me, I'm safe enough that, choosing rest is actually revolutionary. Yeah, it changes the whole lineage, the future generations. When a woman rests, the whole lineage changes. And I see this in households, and they don't have to preach rest. They just have to be rest. And it takes commitment, and usually it takes community. And I guess we're going to get into all the ways that people can do that. But
Yes.
it's there are these ancestral exhaustion contracts that get handed down. And our mothers, many of us were raised by mothers who were daughters to patriarchy.
Yes.
They're daughters of patriarchy. And that doesn't mean anything. There's no blame game here. But
Yeah.
as a result, that comes to us. And if we want to break the cycle of fatigue, we have to break our allegiance to systems, patriarchy, all the other pieces to the puzzle. So yeah, I mean, it's a, I think we can make it complex or we can make it kind of simple. And I think at Daring to Rest, we try to make it simple where we provide community to actually rest your body because that is the first step to becoming more of a rested person, to actually feel rest in your bones. And, that is something where I think the practice of yoga nidra is so good at, but also other rest practices, really simple rest practices, taking some silence every day, understanding the appreciation of a pause before you get on your cell phone. Appreciation of a pause. It often can shift the choices and decisions we make.
Wow. Wow. Again, so many different places I could take this, but I want to repeat the words you said, which is ancestral exhaustion contract. Like, oh my God. Oh my goddess. Um, wow. Yeah. That's really powerful to recognize that that exists. To just
Yeah.
acknowledge that for some of us, I'll include myself for sure, 100%, that that's one of the contracts that's been passed down that I signed on the dotted line, you know, unconsciously, subconsciously, but
Yeah. Well, if you do internal family systems, you understand about all the different parts and all these things. I mean, I'm not an internal family systems person, but I know enough
yeah.
to know that these wounded parts, there's something about the ancestry that, well, through the mother, the cells, literally, we do receive
Yes.
a lot of this gets inherited to us, but it doesn't mean it has to determine our path. And that's really why I have a framework called the rested path that I teach to coaches to work with people to become rested because I love yoga nidra. It's a great practice. To me, it's like the first thing to do. Lie down, do nothing, cultivate a rested body. But there's more than just a rested body. There's a rested voice, there's taking rested action. And all of these, when they rise from rest, can be really powerful. Not the thinking mind, because we're trained to go from the head down, right?
Right.
And so it's really like in the rested path that I teach, it's very much we talk and we explore ancestral exhaustion contracts a lot, and we bring in family constellation work to
Yes.
some extent
Love
too,
it.
because you have to. We stand with our ancestors, and we also recognize that we also have chosen a new story. We've
Mm.
chosen a more rested story. And so that doesn't mean, and this is the challenge when you want to become rested, more so than just the lying down piece, but the ancestral exhaustion contracts. If you break an ancestral exhaustion contract, there's a loyalty that's being broken to the tribe.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
And that's a huge
That's
thing.
a huge thing. That's a
Right? I mean, it
huge,
can be as
huge thing.
simple as, in my family, it was negativity. Oh my gosh, let's have a negativity party. You
Mm.
know, like literally. And if I chose to not be negative, well, I'm out. I'm out of the tribe. Like, who do you think you are?
Right.
Negativity was exhausting for me. I
Yes.
was losing my vibration, like I was
Yes.
literally down in the dumps. Talk about love, the vibration of love, the frequency of love. That was like I'm with negativity, it just zips me way away from love.
Sure. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, just weaving in the come back to love piece here for a moment. I mean, for me, this is all about coming back to love. I mean, coming back to rest, you're actually inviting and allowing yourself to be your actual true self without all these contracts, without all these distractions, without all of the um these patterns that aren't healthy that pull us actually off balance and out of our self, capital S. And this for me, this is all about coming back to love, what you're doing 100%. Like,
Absolutely. I mean, this is why I was so excited when you invited me on the podcast because I was like, well, there's actually an episode on the Daring to Rest podcast about it's called Rest is Love.
yes, yes.
And and
I
and
listen to
and I
that.
yeah, I did that episode because when you rest, when you cultivate a rested body, you
Yeah.
start to viscerally know the frequency of love,
Yeah.
the frequency. And when you get that frequency in your bones, in your cells, you wake up and don't want to go away from that frequency. You want to be closer to that frequency. So you start to know what's rested and unrested, even more so, like what's love and what's not love. Because rest and love are like literally they're partners.
Yes. Yes, they are a hundred
Yeah,
percent.
they're
Yes.
in the same family, they're ancestors.
They are ancestors. They're twin sisters, I think. Yes. Yeah. Um, and I know everyone listening is on the edge of their seat. I know, like, how do we do this? What are the practices? But gonna hold off still for another moment because I really want to really for awareness for our listeners. Like, it's hard for people to recognize that they're exhausted and tired sometimes. Sometimes people are fully aware how exhausted they are, but other times they're not because they're just like unconsciously moving through their world, 90 miles an hour faster, and they don't notice. And of course, there's impact. So I'd love to just highlight a few of the impacts in your experience. And before we get to like what to do about this. Yeah.
Yeah,
Like, what have
absolutely.
you been noticing? You've worked with hundreds, maybe thousands of people. I'm sure you've seen.
Yeah, rest is such a heroine's journey. Coming to rest,
Mm,
because we often have to have many initiations before we say, I must, like it's a do or die situation. I must become a rested woman. So these initiations can be burnout, a health challenge, relationships that always break down. Uh, these are some of the if you're in this chronic cycle of fatigue, and there's real life too. I mean, I am the primary caretaker for my mother with dementia and Alzheimer's. I mean, that's an like
yeah.
that's not rested,
No.
So we have real life, right? And then we have, the things that bring us down, that bring us to our knees. And usually, if you have something that's bringing you to your knees, like, I can't go on this way,
Mm.
and you need more sanity. Like this is insane. You know,
Yes.
you need more sanity. Then to me, I always say the first stop on your heroine's journey is rest. In Maureen Murdoch's heroine's journey, because she really coined the phrase. I think she was the coiner of the phrase heroine's journey.
Mm.
It's the, this descent to the goddess, this descent to the goddess, and that's rest.
Mm.
That's many other things. You can put other things in in goddess, but the descent to the goddess
Mm.
is this place, and yoga nidra happens to be actually not just a state of consciousness and a sleep-based meditation practice, but it's a goddess. It came from goddess culture. Goddess, there's a goddess nidra.
Oh, yeah.
It's not surprising. It's
That's
not
right. That's
surprising because it's the super divine feminine.
right. Yes.
And once you drink from that well
Mm.
enough, once you drink from the well enough, you can't go back to the unrested story. You
Mm.
you 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 are on a heroine's journey to become rested.
Wow.
And that's where women who chronically have burnt out, because I'm not doing Daring to Rest for no reason. I have a PhD in burnout.
Right.
That brought me to this work. We
Right.
teach what we have needed,
To learn, yes.
you
And
know?
burnout isn't just like I feel burnt out. I mean, burnout is like a real thing that has a lot of physical components to it, right?
Physical, mental,
Mental, emotional.
emotional.
Yes.
Yeah, it manifests differently for everyone. A lot of people can't really identify that they're burnt out because they've been in chronic fatigue, chronic stress for a
Right.
long time, and they think it's normal. Um,
Right.
but once people rest, and it's hard to rest, to really make that space.
Hmm.
But I found that so many women often need a little bit of a knock on the head, like a come to your knees
Yeah.
moment.
Moment, right.
Then they go, this story cannot continue as it was. I mean, that's like you see women who get divorced. This is like they can't be in this relationship anymore for whatever reasons. They need a new story. They've been brought to their knees enough times. And the same thing about being in an unrested story,
Hmm.
whether it's divorce or whatever it is, there's so many factors, but you can't continue doing the same thing and expecting to feel thrive like you're thriving.
Right. We know all about
Doesn't work.
that. Right. Exactly.
Yeah, so it's like, where's the rested path? Where's the rested path? And what
Yeah.
happens is in our culture, they start dangling, little counterfeit energy in front of us.
Sure.
They dangle
Hmm.
the energy drinks. They dangle all the things, the hacks for sleeping. They
Yes.
dangle all these things in front of us.
Even the healthy things, right? The maca and the,
Oh my, I've
like,
had a ton
right.
of green juices. Yeah,
Right. Yeah.
it didn't make me rested,
No.
and I like a green juice,
Yeah.
but it's much deeper than that. There's a depth. There's a can I be, whether it's you're in a dark night of the soul,
Mhm.
or sometimes it's not that dramatic. Sometimes it's as simple as, you know, I'm just not happy.
Yeah. 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 We're going to take a quick commercial break right now. That is the perfect moment and come back to what to do about this dilemma in our lives. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Come Back to Love Radio. We are here today with Karen Brody and Daring to Rest. Oh my gosh, this has been so powerful so far, and I'm really excited personally to now jump into like how do you just started to talk about how we recognize needing it and how it's sometimes not easy to recognize. And you gave examples too of like I can imagine our listeners like asking themselves the question, like some are really clear, like, yes, I'm exhausted, I'm sick and tired of living this way, I feel like I'm going crazy, I need to rest, but really rest. You're making a distinction which we haven't actually said out loud yet, which is like you're not talking about taking a nap every afternoon for a half an hour. I mean, that's helpful, yes, but you're actually talking about like a deep rest in the body. That's how I'm experiencing what you're sharing. That actually is like from the foundation up, you know, that I'm going to
Yes.
become actually a rested person, not somebody who's kind of riding on stress and go, go, go and do, do, do. And the next cup of coffee or the next piece of dark chocolate, you know. So as good as dark chocolate is, you know.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So let's talk about like what do we do? It is hard to imagine. Sometimes I look at the calendar and I'm like, can I rest?
Yeah, and here's the thing. You can start slowly. I mean, there are ways to rest your nervous system
Yeah.
that are simple, that are, um, I don't want to use the word quick, right? Because it's like, you
No,
know,
it's not about
we're
that.
not, we're not, but they're soft in terms of like, your life maybe doesn't look like it has space yet for this practice that I mentioned, yoga nidra. And I'll
Mhm.
mention the practice of yoga nidra some more. But there are ways to start by just being in nature. Nature is restful. Taking your shoes off and putting your feet on the ground, doing a slow, mindful walk, walking meditation. Thich Nhat Hanh talked about, walk as if your feet are kissing the earth. Just if you imagine your feet kissing the earth, that in and of itself is, 3 minutes a day. I always tell parents like 3 minutes of silence before you go to bed at night. Just
Mhm.
3 minutes. Or 3 minutes in the morning if the kids aren't jumping into bed with you in the morning. My son was up at 5 a.m., one of my sons. So, I didn't start with meditation. And I was a big meditator. And that was a big jolt to me
Mhm.
when, our mornings were very early. But, there are small things that we can do, uh, even if you just take a breath. So just in the transition moments of your day, when you get into the car, when you get home from work, when you get into the car before you get out of the car, before you answer your phone, taking a breath, those kinds of things can be a bridge to becoming more rested, done consistently. And
Mhm.
it's all about consistency for anything. If you want anything to, come into your life, if you want to really manifest something, it's about consistently envisioning it, being it. With rest, whether it is a full practice of yoga nidra, which is a sleep-based meditation practice and really a state of consciousness that you're guided into. It
Mhm.
seems like people might say it's like a guided meditation, but it's deeper than that. Most conventional meditation takes you, um, it'll take you into a place where you are following a mantra or you're following your breath. But Yoga Nidra takes you into a fourth state of consciousness that you can't even get when you're sleeping. So that's a very deep, deep form of meditation. And basically, it's a pointer back to your true self. And your most rested self is your true self when you're authentically who you are. You're not afraid to be unliked by all the systems that are invested in your exhaustion. The family system, the,
Right.
the cultural systems,
Yes.
you're not afraid to be deemed unreasonable
Mhm.
or disagreeable. Women have this thing. The moment we speak up, right? The moment we speak up, our inner knowing is slapped down. And so,
Yes.
then we begin to go off the rested path because it's like the inner knowing is what takes you to the rested path, following the inner knowing. And of course, there are people's feelings to be known, to care about. We love people. We love a lot of people in our family system. So it doesn't mean like going no contact, although it might mean going no contact. Everybody's different.
Mhm.
But there are rested choices that we will make once we begin to become more rested. I say to everyone, don't even make a decision about like what you're going to do about a family member unless you rest on it.
Mm.
What is coming from your head. We have been trained to the thinking mind to inform all of our actions.
Mhm.
What if that place of being, that space of doing nothing, that empty space, that liminal space, that dreamy space, that space of imagination is where we get our choice, make our decisions from and our boundaries. Because we do have to make boundaries. We can't let people do what they do. if it's like impinging on our rested self,
Hmm.
you
Right.
know?
Yes, 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 yes. I talk about that a lot, and I'm glad you brought it up a couple of times. This way that we make decisions from our, head down into our body, and then we're like disconnected from actually what our bodies desire and require for ourselves. It's like I talk about it in a way of like, how do you include your body in your decision making? But actually, it's the truth of the question is how do you include your rested body in making a decision?
Right. I mean, the rested path is really three different parts of the rested path: rested body, rested voice, and rested action.
Mm.
And it all roots from rest. So the rested body, it's very hard for people to move into their bodies. Most of us have just been trained to
Mm.
be in our heads. And
Right.
so I've noticed unless there's a way like a practice like yoga nidra or sitting beside a tree for in silence, that can sometimes have people drop into their bodies, although our minds are so full,
Mm.
we have the monkey mind. But there's a lot that that when we begin to get on a more rested path, it all roots from rest. And yeah, body is where we go the first part of the rested path, because I don't want to talk to anyone about finding your voice and taking action unless they are resting in some way. And I'm talking about, it doesn't have to be a big practice, but it
Mm.
has to be. This is a word from Octavia Rahim, who's phenomenal. I love her. And she writes on rest a lot.
Mm.
She talks about devotion to rest. And it has to be a devotion. When rest becomes a devotion, then we start saying, here's my voice, this is, I'm finding my voice. This is what
Mhm.
my voice says. This is what my, and, and, and there are ways of moving into like that space of rest. I think what's really powerful about something like rage, for example,
Mm.
rage is so unfiltered, and
Mm.
so is rest. Rest allows you to be
Huh.
so unfiltered, so that like the
Mm.
armor comes off. And
Right,
that's
right.
why rage can also be like a really good restaurant can be really freeing. And that can be very much a rested voice because you don't give a flying whatever. I don't think I can say the word on this.
I think you can.
Okay. You don't care. And when you don't care, when the armor is off, you
Yeah,
don't have to be armored. You
yeah.
don't have to worry about what people think. You don't have to have your lack of worthiness badge that literally, you were shamed into, not feeling worthy for your whole life. When you're unarmored, you have this voice that's liberated, and you make decisions from a less triggered place. So yes, you get to your family, you show up to your family, and it's, oh, well, this isn't healthy for me.
Hmm. Right,
Period.
right,
Like, there's not a discussion. I
right,
don't need to I don't need to justify my
right,
decision. It's not healthy for me, period, or it's not rested for me,
right.
period.
End of that sentence.
But it doesn't come from a place of being triggered. It doesn't come from, oh my gosh, she's this and that and all the ancestral exhaustion contracts and oh, she never listens to me. No, it's just like it's not rested for me.
Right,
Not healthy.
right.
And you know it because you've rested into that.
Yes.
And your rest is informing you when you come up, because again, back to love, that vibration of love, you can tell because viscerally you've received so much love when you rest. You can tell when you're not in the frequency of love. And
Mm.
you're like, okay, I'm going to see my family, but it's only going to be once a year or once a month because I don't want to be in this frequency,
Hmm.
you know? Yeah.
Right. That's right. Wow. Okay. This is amazing. We're going to take another quick commercial break and come back to, I think, something very interesting. We'll be right back. Welcome back, everybody, to Come Back to Love. Today's episode, Daring to Rest. Come back to love, daring to rest, rest, love, love, rest. All the same thing. We have a few more minutes of the show today, and I feel like personally I want to ask, like you gave us really good suggestions, and I actually remember that practice from a long time ago. I don't think I've employed it in a long time where like take a breath before doing each thing in the day. Sometimes what I like to do is take one day and tell myself, I'm going to do that tomorrow for the day only, and then see how it seeps in and have an intention to kind of continue it. That for me is a really helpful piece to start something new. I wonder what else. I'm the kind of person who's like, I'm an intense person. I like to like dive right in. Like, okay, I am ready to be a fully rested woman. What would you tell me to do? What should I do? Tell me what to
Should
do.
I do? Yeah.
What should I do?
Nothing.
How shall I
Nothing.
be? Yes,
You should
exactly.
do nothing.
Right.
But it's hard. But it's hard. It's hard in
Mhm.
our culture.
Mhm.
And so there are slow ways to start. And I think, we mentioned the take a breath. And I love it. Yeah, just make it a devotion for one day, make it a practice for a day or a week. However you want. Some women do 21 days, so they just, like the idea of challenging themselves a little to, but not saying this is forever kind of thing,
Yeah.
not overly committing.
Right.
And then, like I said, being in nature. But I personally, you know, I just think yoga nidra is like the ice cream sundae of rest.
Yeah. So is that something I love the practice of yoga nidra? I love it. I first discovered it at Kripalu, like, I don't know, it must have been 25 years ago. It was new and I'd lied down. I know you know the person who I think she's maybe the founder of it in this Western culture anyway. And I lied down and just, oh my God, I just could not believe how rested I felt. Is that something that you would recommend people do on a daily basis, a weekly basis? Like, how do you bring
I,
that into your life?
yeah, I think if you just don't make, you don't have to make a commitment
Hmm.
yet, but just experience it.
Hmm.
Notice how it feels. Everybody's different. Everyone has to sometimes find the right rest teacher for them. So the right yoga nidra teacher for them.
Right.
But there is an invitation when you're in the practice of yoga nidra that is the deepest kind of rest imaginable to go to these deep spaces. So if you like it, then I would just honestly, just like you have physical therapy once a week or something else, I'd maybe if you want to call it physical therapy, call it to trick yourself,
Yeah.
but book it in
Hmm.
once a week. I used to go on Fridays at noon.
Hmm.
That's all I did for the first year. And I had severe panic attacks for many, many years until I discovered Yoga Nidra. And
Wow.
Yoga Nidra began to relax my nervous system, began to um, s stop that the panic attack cycle,
Yeah.
uh, and guided me to my inner knowing, which is to go to someone who had been recommended to me for years uh, to help me become more embodied. And so I started listening to the whispers when I laid down to rest, I could hear the whispers, and the whispers led me to this person. And I eventually went off anti-anxiety medication that I had been on for 3 years. And it was the only way I was really surviving in the world. And there's not about medication or not medication. You can be on medication and practice yoga nidra. It's not a right or a wrong. It's really the invitation with yoga nidra is to just do nothing. And in the doing nothing, you begin to bring that sense of being in the world, not just doing. So it's the masculine feminine balance, and the doing is often a toxic doing. We need the masculine, but we need a healthy masculine. So we need productivity. We
Yes.
need to be doing. Our soul wants us to be and become.
Yes.
The becoming is active, it's productivity, and but how can we do this in a healthy way? So like in the rested path, I talk about working soft and bringing this. ethos of working soft. And that's not working. That's getting stuff done. I mean, I'm a doer by nature. If you look at any of my, like human design and everything else, I mean, you know why rest is my challenge because I literally am designed to like build a house in a day. So the doing, I have no problem with. And some people have the opposite. Some people have the opposite.
Right.
And it's really, we are designed differently. So, there's no shame either way, but there are ways we are designed that we still, even if we're designed a certain way, it doesn't mean the toxic masculinity of the over productivity. That is what the culture is throwing at us again and again and again.
Mhm.
We can actually be productive beings, and we can also be rested. And when you take that together, I think that changes the world. That changes your world
Yes.
individually, your household, the ripples, the community, it changes the world.
Yeah, it's so powerful. It's so powerful. It really is. And it's great role modeling because people don't realize that they can also do that. They can change their mind, for example. I'm a big proponent in mind changing. Just change your mind. I always tell people that I'm working with, like, you can choose and you can change your mind. And they're like, what? I can change my mind? I'm like, yes, because in the moment, it has to be in alignment, or in your words, it would be like coming from a rested place where you're making a decision that's, in alignment or from rest.
Yeah, and yeah, I mean, yoga nidra to me is a practice of lying down to wake up. And
Yeah.
when you're awakened, when you're conscious, then anything can change. The ancestral exhaustion contracts, they can dissolve. They can lessen. They can, life is a journey and we have different seasons in our lives.
Mhm.
So, there are times where we have to tend to this and times where we have to tend to that. And so there's, I think this is the problem in our culture, which is like a one and done thing. You don't go take a rest program and expect that's going to be, oh, I've checked rest off my list. No, it's a lifestyle. A
Yes.
lifestyle.
Mhm.
And when it becomes a lifestyle, then the choices become simple because, is this healthy for me? Oh no, it's not. Okay. Is this rested? No. And you feel it in your bones. It comes
Mhm.
from a visceral place. And then it's like, oh, it's a no. Sometimes I think something should be a yes, and then I go, oh wait, no, it's a no. You know,
Yes, yes, absolutely. Big part
it's
of
hard sometimes.
that is
Yeah.
hard. Yeah. Big practice in the come back to love community. Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's what you said for those reasons.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness, so beautiful. Can you tell us? I know there's a free gift you might want to offer the audience, but I also would love to hear, like, where can people plug into your work and maybe something that's coming up in the fall?
Well, daringtorest.com,
Mhm.
daringtorest.com is the place
Yeah.
that all things. And yes, there is a free gift. And so that will be a yoga nidra for people to try. So
Oh, I can't wait.
hope everyone enjoys the free gift. And yeah, we have a rest coach training. So there are women who take it who are on a personal rest journey. But it's a little bit of an advanced rest practice, meaning that often people are teaching a modality that's rest related, like yin yoga, like meditation, breath work, Reiki. Those are the women that come into this Daring to Rest coach training, and that starts in September. Yeah, and it's really that I teach the rested path framework to these women, and it's very internal. So you do the internal rest work, and it's very external with stepping into your rest leadership, personally and professionally. So we do a lot of professional training of rest leaders at Daring to Rest. And I also will probably be or offering a working soft group in the fall. So that is a program that I've run before for women who want to embrace working soft.
Oh my goodness. Working soft versus working hard. I love it.
Yeah.
Love it. Listen up, everybody online. I mean, all of our listeners online and elsewhere. Wow, that both of those things just feel so powerful. I know I'm going to plug myself into just the right place at the right time. But this has been so wonderful, Karen. I'm so grateful you said yes and followed your rested bodies and voice guidance to say yes to be on the Come Back to Love radio show. It's such a contribution to me, and I know to all of the listeners.
Thank you for inviting me. It's been great to be here.
You're welcome. You're welcome. So thanks to everybody who's listening, daringtorest.com. That's very easy to find. And we'll see you next week, Thursday, 1 a.m. or 1 p.m. Eastern Time. Have a beautiful week, everybody, and a great day.